Hello, brothers and sisters. Welcome to HeCsUsAll YouTube channel. I hope everybody's having a wonderful day today. I apologize I wasn't here last night. Everyone in the house is sick right now, and I couldn't do it last night. Don't want to get too far into that, but everybody's sick, put it that way. I hope everybody's doing good. Today's video, we're going to talk about Ooparts. Some people call them Ooparts. I've always called them Ooparts. What they are is out of place artifacts. Now, these are things that are found and have been for hundreds and hundreds of years. They'll find things in like 300 million year old rock that'll be like screws or spark plugs or little iron pots, and the iron consistency and the things that they found, like a hammer once. The thumbnail picture shows the hammer one. The iron consistency is even like something that we don't create in our time. It's like a better quality. I have some videos that I put together for us. I have all the channels. I'm going to show you the channels. I'll link them below after the stream. I think you guys will be interested in this. We might make a series out of this because there are hundreds and hundreds, and there might be thousands of these things. They vary from places, like out of place places, because the structures and the buildings, they're too advanced for the time period that they could have been built in. A lot like Machu Picchu, or there's a lot of places, just the same as like the pyramids in Egypt. I don't think the Egyptians built the pyramids. I think they came upon them and they used them, and then they may have painted hieroglyphics inside them. Um, the Great Pyramids of Egypt, no bodies were ever found in them. They're not tombs. They were, I believe, because there's pyramids all over the world. I think that it was a way that they provided energy for the world at maybe the last time or even the time before that we were really advanced. I think this happens over and over and over again. And all the streams we've been doing lately, they kind of tie into each other, even with like simulation theory and the multiverse theory. Um, we could be doing these things over and over again. There could be a reset that happens, and every time we get a little bit further, like the Mayan calendar, it ended on December 21st, 2012. A lot of people believe something really bad was going to happen on that day. But nothing did. Maybe that was how far they made it last time. I have a lot of theories on it, but I think the stuff is interesting and I think you guys are going to enjoy it. Let me pull up the first video. I obviously have to stop, and talk every once in a while to remain within copyright. I don't do that to like annoy the hell out of you guys or anything. So this one, the first video we're going to watch is the first two videos we're going to watch are from this channel, but one is their second channel and one is their first channel. The first video I'm going to show you guys is from their second channel. And then the second video is only about like one out of place artifact. And that's from their first channel. But all these channels will be linked below after the stream.
Throughout the ages, countless reports of unexplained and baffling
How's the volume on everything for you guys? Is it good?
discoveries have been reportedly made deep within the mines of Earth. Regardless of the type of mine, or indeed its depth, it's...
Now, see, the thing with this is, I'm going to rewind this because they don't get into a lot of these photos that they're showing right here. And all of these are out of place artifacts. This is that little pot that I just mentioned. It was found in like 300 million year old rock, and it's a little iron pot, and the consistency of the iron is not what we would make. So it's like a better quality. This bell, same thing. It was found inside coal, very, very old coal. Now, I also have a theory on that, though. I things can turn to stone. Okay, when we lived at our other place that we were living at, we used to have fires out back all the time. And one time we had put some glass bottles in the fire, and I think we poured water on the fire to put it out as well after. There were pieces of wood like that we were burning that turned to stone. The next day when I came out, they were stone. So I think if conditions are just right, things can turn to stone rather rapidly. It depends on the heat, the pressure, a lot of different variables, but I think stone could be made a lot faster than man realizes. That's just my personal opinion. I used to have it. I wish I still did. I would have it up here. But it was a piece of wood. You could tell it was wood. It still looked like wood, but it was stone. I don't know if it's because the fire got so hot because of the glass and we poured the water on it or what. But so either way, though, the things that they found shouldn't have been where they were.
Unexplained and baffling discoveries have been reportedly...
Like this one, see, this is like a screw that was in rock that was millions and millions of years old. There's a spark plug.
Deep
that
within
bell
the mines
was found in coal. This looks like a fossilized imprint of a pocket knife or something, maybe. And then this next one is the skull of a giant, but turned to stone. So this is the size of a human skull, and this is also a human skull.
Its depth, it seems that these peculiar stories continue to surface, and usually only by word of mouth. often
So this one, doorknobs found in 300 million year old coal, rebuking dating methods in evolution itself. So doorknobs, like modern day doorknobs that they find, like this all just proves to me that something happens. Like, and I think it's something that happens over and over again. So man is really only allowed to get so far each time. Sometimes I look at today, like the things we're doing with AI and everything, and it makes me think of like the Tower of Babel, right? People were trying to build a tower to the heavens. They wanted to become more like gods. We're doing a lot of these same things again today. It's probably getting close to that time. Then I that's like I said, all these videos just seem to tie into each other.
attached to these fascinating tales, you
That's
will
the
find
spark plug.
stories of these artifacts being seized, destroyed, or simply reburied. We are often confronted with an apparent cover-up, vast resources and
Another
manpower
screw
being
and rock.
harnessed to hide these facts from the world. The motives for choosing to conceal such artifacts from the world could indeed be endless, though regardless of motive, we feel it is imperative that we continue to expose these stories to the earth if we have compelling witnesses and unmistakable evidence of a cover-up. Deep beneath the city of Donetsk, within the Rostov region of Russia, a large foundation of sandstone can be found, something known as rock shield of Carboniferous age. It is about 300 to 360 million years old and is lined with distributions of coking coals that are also of around the same age. Astonishingly, Mr. Kasatskin has discovered, upon the roof of this shaft of coal, an imprint of a chariot wheel. An imprint undoubtedly.
See, now is this an imprint or is it a chariot wheel that was, fossilized basically? Um Again, this is a really old area and here we have a chariot wheel. Now the thing is they told this guy to blow the shaft anyway. So this got
made
lost.
before the rock had formed around it. He also discovered another imprint, a small distance further along the shaft. It must be noted that these imprints have remained buried deep within these seams of rock for many millions of years. If a scientific analysis could have been undertaken upon this artifact, it could have shaken our understandings of world history, just like so many other artifacts we have been made aware of, all but a few now stolen from the public domain. Upon realizing the implications of his discovery, Mr. Kasatskin, an extremely experienced foreman in ventilation and safety engineering, specializing in seismic prognosis, thankfully took several photographs of his miraculous and now.
See, photos don't do justice though. Like this is what this guy found. He went into the shaft, right? And whatever company he was working for, he sent pictures to them and was like, "Oh my god, look what I found." And they told him to keep going. I think this area is flooded out now or something. So alls we have is pictures. It's interesting how when people stumble upon these things like the giant skeletons for instance, those are out of place artifacts as well. They just disappear. You never hear of them again. You don't know where they go. Alls we have is photos for a lot of these things. Not all of them, but for a lot of them.
Concealed discovery before officially reporting it and requesting a scientific evaluation. When his boss notified the owners of the mine in the hopes of getting an analysis of the artifact with an attempt to preserve it, to his boss's surprise, they demanded he continued the work through the shaft so that it could be subsequently flooded, which is unfortunately what has occurred, making further exploration of the sites impossible. He stated that he's investigated further regarding the Western Mine's history with the fellow miners there and was able to confirm the existence of the other print within that mine. It had been damaged by blast hole driving and was little mentioned, though it was indeed there. He was sometimes in this cut, he said, and got to take a good look at it.
They do, yeah, they do go there. What was that movie? There was a movie, I can't remember. I think it was it's like Indiana Jones or something, and at the end of the movie, they showed them like wheeling the artifact in this big warehouse with all these boxes where they just hid everything. They don't even, they don't even hide that they hide this stuff.
He says that he was surprised, but also somewhat afraid to admit that these objects are of artificial origin. We, on the other hand, are excited by such a premise and will keep you posted on any further developments regarding the mine.
We recently came across a most curious artifact. one which has been claimed as having once been found, just like a handful of other exquisite objects we have previously shared, within a lump of ancient coal. It is a once smelted, solid iron recreation of a face, whose owner could have lived an—
This one's interesting. Um, this face on the other side of the mask, like over here, like back over here, there's this thing coming out of it that I don't know if it was because when they made the plaster for the mold or whatever they used for the mold of the face, maybe it was a breathing apparatus of some sort. uh it's just strange because it's definitely like it was a cover, it's someone's face, and it's so old that we don't have history of who this is. I think
an unimaginable
I think we were advanced so many times that some of the things we find are from like advancements that were 7 times ago or something. Excuse me. Um, I honestly think that man's only allowed to get so far. I think a lot of the times we probably destroy ourselves, but every time I think we pretty much for the most part make the same mistakes and stuff, and we just get a little bit farther every time. Um, we may even exist ourselves, like as who we are time and time again. The feelings of deja vu and the feelings that people get like, oh, I've been here or I've done this, but you've never actually been where you are at that time, like ever that you really remember. But for some reason, everything feels so familiar, right? Those feelings may be more than just feelings. They may be like residual memories, right? And if we were to exist within a simulation, again, none of this disproves God to me. God would have built the simulation. We may even have chose to come here for one reason or another. Maybe we're here to learn something. Maybe we have to keep coming back until we finally get it right, right? It's even crossed my mind that with CERN, they're resetting time, and that this sounds crazy, but that even Lucifer himself may have had a hand in building CERN, right? And God allows him to do this over and over again because each time time gets reset. Now, Lucifer would want to do this because he knows at some point non-existent, he's gone, right? Like that's prophesized. This is what God said. He knows his time is limited, but maybe God allows this to happen and will allow it to happen for however long because each go around, people make slightly different choices, right? And more people are saved. So I like my mind goes all over the place with this stuff, but there's something to this, and it's really sad that we as a society decide that because we've taught history a certain way that we just put these things to the side, like, oh, this didn't happen or this doesn't exist. We find these things that prove that man was not like a monkey at one point, and we weren't cavemen, and we may have been cavemen, but we were advanced before we became cavemen. Albert Einstein was quoted after the atom bomb was made saying that World War III would be fought with weapons that he couldn't even imagine, or something like that, right? Like he said something like, I don't know what World War III will be fought with, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. He said that because of the advancements we were making in weaponry and that we're going to take ourselves out. AI, as soon as we flip that switch, its main priority would have been self-preservation. So there is no off switch. I can guarantee that.
long time ago, with the claim written by John D. Morris, PhD, quote, I was recently contacted by an older lady who grew up in the coal mining area of Appalachia. Her ancestors, having lived in the area for generations, her now deceased father was a miner who had once made a remarkable discovery embedded within a coal seam, a human face made from cast iron. Like most people, they had been taught that coal is far too—
If you look, like it almost looks like maybe something was in this guy's nose or mouth, and then they shaped it more to look like a face with whatever mold they used. And you'll see when they do a different shot, the like air hole thing on the other
old to
side.
contain any human artifacts. The miner was so proud and perplexed by his find, it eventually became a family heirloom and was simply named Man. As a
See,
large, heavy object, it was eventually used as an ornament, decades later becoming stored among his belongings. She distinctly remembers her father's story of its discovery and the care he had taken with this prized object, having recently rediscovered it among her father's possessions. End quote. The owner of this artifact has requested to remain anonymous and to
no, that's interesting. If I came across something like this, I would have done the same thing because, again, these things disappear. We have evidence of giants. We have evidence of giant trees. I made a video a long time ago called Our Petrified Past, I think, and it shows remnants of giant trees. There's a video we're going to watch today together that could possibly have been roots of giant trees.
withhold her identity. This makes the story even more appealing to us, as throughout our time researching these types of claims, and indeed artifact, we find that those who are pushing a supposed discovery, publicizing themselves while touring an object, are often in a search for a profit and recognition. Thus, as she is seemingly fearful of the artifact's disappearance, it would seem her story would align more with someone who possesses an item, not only of an extraordinary, incredibly controversial age, but also has a sentimental value, one which outweighs any idea of selling the item or even risking losing it from exposing its location. How old is the so-called man? Who could have made it, pouring cast iron into a mold, resulting in an exact duplicate of the man's face in the form of a three-dimensional mask? Could we be peering at the face of an ancestor once of incredible importance, one from a lost civilization, a lost time within our planet's history?
You know, it's funny that we always jump to stuff like that. Like, yeah, this thing is super old, right? But a guy of great importance, what if it was just a dad that was making a mask with his kids? Like, things could be that simple sometimes. I honestly think that when we were advanced time and time again, we were so similar to the way we are now. I think they're just different runs. Um, it's just amazing that these things are left behind and we fail to acknowledge them.
We find such possibilities incredibly intriguing. There are a number of artifacts found at varying parts of the world, which, due to the immense age of the
See, this
strata
is
they were
another one where they're
discovered
not
within,
really going to talk about any of this stuff. Like, this is 300 million year old iron pot found in coal. They had the chunk of coal that they found it in too.
fly in the face of current paradigms in regards to the chronology of man. Iron pots, zinc vases, even
Zinc vase, dynamited out of something, right? But 500 million years old. Now, there are also drawings, like carvings on buildings that are millions of years old that depict dinosaurs. I think man existed with dinosaurs. I think at one point the trees were so large that giants were able to exist, giant animals were able to exist. Um, we may have been the cause of the dinosaurs' extinction. You know, we always talk about it being an asteroid or this or that or a combination of things. They have all kinds of theories as to why the dinosaurs went extinct. Maybe it was man. Maybe it was the deforestation of man, the way we do today. We've done this over and over and over again. It's so obvious, but they just don't want to change what we've been taught. Or they purposefully lie to us because they don't want people to panic. I don't know.
imprints of ancient
Because
chariot
whatever's coming, we can't stop, right?
wheels, found in numerous coal seams, and found by people in positions of responsibility, whom often testify not only in regards to their legitimacy, but are often accompanied by the lump of coal in which they were found, still possessing the
300 million year old chariot wheel. That was the one that they showed earlier. But again, they just told this guy, keep going. Like, we're not stopping. We're not doing anything interesting with this. Just keep going. And now it's flooded. It's underwater.
intriguing imprint upon their surface, undeniably supporting the testimonies of these individuals, all but proving authenticity beyond doubt. Like that of the iron pot and its accompanying coal block, which was its tomb, carbon dating has indicated that the pot is an astonishing 300 million years old. However, as time goes on and coal mining, along with many other mining activities, becomes more rapid and advanced in nature, it is simply a matter of time before even more mysterious and unexplainable artifacts are also found. Unfortunately, due to the controversial nature of these artifacts, it is very likely that a number of them have either been shrugged off or actively destroyed before ever achieving widespread acclaim.
It's
However,
so sad. Like, it's so sad. And there's probably so much that could be learned from these ancient sites and these ancient artifacts, right? But they just toss it right out the window. That, or they do learn what they need to learn. That's why they build their tunnels. That's why they've prepared and done the things that they've done. And they just don't share the information, which is much more likely. The illuminated ones, right? I don't want to say the other word, but the illuminated ones, the elite, the ones who are, I don't know how to word this, but you guys know who I'm talking about, all right? This might be the great secret. This might be the thing they know, that something big is happening. We're going to hide ourselves. We think we're going to be safe, but they're not. If you believe in what prophecy and what the Bible has said, you don't want to be in hiding in the mountains when these things happen. Um, it's just something that's happened over and over again. I think that there was probably Bibles for each time. Like, people had their prophecies and their words that were left behind each time, and it changes every time.
fortunately, the next artifact of interest, just like that of the many others we have previously covered, can not only be seen as yet another smoking gun, indicating that there has been a number of advanced phases within human civilization, but yet again, this timeline could, in all possibility, date
Those are
back
the
an
doorknobs.
astonishing 300 million years. Although modern society has been taught that we are at the height of human accomplishments, many of these techniques we currently claim as our own accomplishments could have been achieved an unimaginably long time ago,
Time and time
far back
again, though, that's the thing. 15 million-year-old shoe print found on a lump of something. But it's like a sneaker print, and it's 15 million years old. Um, I think that things are so similar each time.
within Earth's history, dated to the same age as that of a number of other artifacts which we have covered in the past. A group of brass doorknobs were once abandoned, eventually
That's the
finding
shoe
their
print.
way into a coal seam, which has been dated as 300 million year old geology. Found still encased within this
Those are the
ancient
doorknobs. I
strata,
don't know why they show the images the way they do, Like, it's not stuff he's talking about. But these are like modern day doorknobs that they found in this extremely old rock.
these astonishing artifacts are undeniably of an incredible age.
It's insane.
Unfortunately, and rather predictably, not much has been done in regard to mainstream investigation into said artifacts and their current location, if
How do you
indeed
debunk
still in
carving
existence,
dating?
is unclear.
Answer: find doorknobs embedded in a 300 million year old coal formation. Again, like I said, if conditions are just right, I'm not saying these things aren't that old, because I do believe myself that we've been advanced over and over and over again. But stone can be formed, coal can be formed much faster than you think. It's just the conditions have to be just right. There's a video coming up that we're going to watch, and it shows a man who turned to stone. And again, the conditions had to be just right, but he turned to stone. When there are a lot of channels that I've watched in the past that talk about like fallen giants and stuff. And there are some mountain regions and stuff that from above do look like a human being laying there, but a giant human being, obviously, but that's turned to a mountain. Like, it's crazy, the things you can see if you're just looking for them. I found things myself. I have videos from a long time ago of like big giant rocks that looked like fallen trees. They look like wood, but they're stone.
Yet fortunately, before their disappearance, photographic evidence was taken, subsequently allowing us to add it to the volume of research and artifacts which not only support our posit of lost civilization, but place human activities an impressive 300 million years back into Earth's history. Who made these brass doorknobs? Could we really be a civilization hundreds of millions of years old? We
Yeah.
find the evidence to suggest such highly compelling. Lake Mead within Nevada, home to the famous Hoover Dam, one of the largest man-made concrete structures on Earth, and what many feel will be the last surviving remnant of our civilization's existence on this planet.
Can you
Although it is
imagine?
also home
Like,
to a number of
the past civilizations have left behind these incredible monuments, these incredible pyramids, these incredible monuments, these incredible buildings, right? And our buildings are made generally not of like actual stone, but stone we create with cement and stuff. That stuff really crumbles over time. To think that the only thing that our civilization's probably going to leave behind this go around is the Hoover Dam is kind of crazy. But if that is what we leave behind, imagine when millions of years from now, when they do find it, it's not going to look the way it looks now. It's going to be probably no water there at all because the geography of the planet just changes so much constantly. At one point, Antarctica wasn't covered in snow. The poles are shifting right now. There's so many things happening right now, but everybody's so caught up in their day-to-day lives that they fail to see these things. It's right in front of us, but everyone's so caught up in the BS that they just fail to see it. And we've got to be ready.
other lesser-known, yet just as astonishing feats of human engineering. Similar to that of the incredible finds we have previously covered, an ancient mine, and although we know it was created for the collection of salt, the date of its creation remains a mystery, with evidential examples of activity within this mine, not only by a now lost civilization, but one that easily predated even that of the Native American himself. As mentioned in the Scientific American of 1926, quote, mines were operating in Nevada many centuries before the days of Aurora and Piyush of Virginia City. One of the discoveries made by archaeologists now delving into the ruins of Pueblo Grande. Many centuries is putting it mildly, for the finds show that mining was in progress at the beginning of the Christian era, some 20 centuries ago, and there are strong indications which point to work created at an even earlier period. End quote. Mysterious circular.
So what they found in this mine, though, is it was mined with machinery, obviously, but long before we had the machinery to do it. Um, things like that, machinery, the buildings made from cement stones and stuff like that, that won't be here in millions of years. Metal rusts away, it dissipates, it disappears. There won't be much left behind unless somehow, some way it gets caught in something and it's preserved that way, like all of the things that we find, these Ooparts, right?
Circular carving, reminiscent of those of Baalbek, Aswan, Bazda Caves, Longyu, etc., are present within the mine, and although it is claimed these were made with stone picks, a true explanation as to the real technology or tools used to liberate this salt is yet to be discovered. Yet the reasoning behind such circular carving has seemingly been unraveled by a find at the bottom or oldest parts of the mine. The salt was seemingly isolated in these circular carving marks as they became deeper and deeper. Then the center block of rock salt was believed to have been broken off by hand and taken out by the miners. What is truly
Look at the
astonishing
chunk of
about
that
this
thing.
mine is its size. Although initial investigations of the cavern were to identify its purpose, this salt mine has since been bought by industries invested in salt production due to its quality. Yet the mystery
So we're
surrounding how these
still
ancient
like we're still mining salt out of this thing. It's amazing.
people discovered this vault of salt, or indeed how they carved their way through an entire mountain in its pursuit, if we assume them to have been primitive in nature and ability, remains an absolute enigma. However, if one were to allocate such feats to a more
It's so obvious and it's right in front of us, but we can't change that. It's crazy because science changes its mind all the time about space, all the time about life on Earth, about how life can't exist in certain parts of the ocean or where there's too much heat or this or that. And then they find out it does, right? They change science, which is supposed to be science. It's supposed to be right or wrong, right? But they change that all the time, but they can't change how we've been taught history. There's a reason behind that, and it's because it's something man cannot stop from happening.
More developed human state, identifying this huge deposit of salt, and indeed the adaptive stone cutting technologies we feel were clearly used elsewhere, incorporated into this mining process, and explain how they managed to dig to such depths here, and indeed at other astonishing ancient sites the world over, are rather easier to explain. Yet I digress. Regardless of our own suspicions as to how this incredible mine was created, its existence alone, we feel, is proof that those responsible had far more knowledge and capabilities than modern man gives them credit for. It is an incredibly ancient mine, one in which we and indeed many others within our field find incredibly compelling.
And
During such events as a pyroclastic flow that he's investigated
I
further.
didn't mean to do that. Where were we? All the way up here somewhere. Okay. See, this is what I don't understand why he does this.
Ancient mine, one in which
He's talking about the mine, but he's showing the Hoover Dam again.
we and indeed many others within our field find incredibly compelling.
During such events as a pyroclastic
So
flow.
this is the one about the guy that turned to stone. I'm telling you guys, we had a fire and I turned wood to stone by accident. So if conditions are just right, this can happen like in an instant. And I truly believe that uh the times that civilization has collapsed over and over again, that each time when it actually happens, I think it happens rather quickly. Like just like the Padre Pio prophecy talking about covering all your windows and everything for 3 days. 3 days is not that long of a time for something catastrophic to happen, but then the miracle of God is that when we do arise in 3 days after blocking everything in, not looking outside, just like Lot's wife, don't turn around, don't look back, um, everything's better. That I think is probably something that happens over and over again.
Flow. Complete human forms can
Pompeii?
often be preserved in a fixed position, turned to ash in an instant. Someone turning into a stone fossil with age, however, was thought to be an impossible scenario. That was until 1898, when an extremely controversial discovery was made.
1898. This is what I'm saying. So all this time, 1898, they found this guy. We can't change the way we're teaching things. There's more to it than just not wanting to change the way we teach history. There's a deeper reason behind it, and it's because we can't stop it.
Deep within a copper mine. Although several reports have surfaced over the years of this most peculiar of discoveries, only one has ever managed to stay around long enough to be officially documented. Deep within an old copper mine in Chuquicamata, an ancient stone woman, complete with basket and tools, was discovered. And although a date of only 400 years was preliminarily given, it is clear to the many involved that she is far older than that. The discovery was examined closely by Jose Toribio Medina, a central figure in Chilean archaeology at the time. He described his findings as follows. The body is that of a female. The depth of the soil where the corpse was found was no more than 6 to 8 feet, and the miner was probably searching the mountain when a sudden collapse buried her.
Or
the miner
the miner was not a minor at all, but a woman who, well, I guess it wasn't a woman, they end up saying, but a person who was running away from the cataclysm that was happening. I think that one of these times that civilization was destroyed, it was destroyed with fire and an intense heat. And that's why we have these stone trees and fossilized roots and these stone frogs and things that they found in this stone person, because it was an extreme heat that had happened and the conditions were just right, and certain things just instantly turned to stone. I don't think it was over a long period of time. Like I said, they change science constantly. Why can't we change history? Well, we can.
Feeling that the mountain was breaking down, lifted her arms up to protect her head, the position in which her body is preserved. This discovery, although the only one of its kind, is highly controversial, and we suspect this may be because certain individuals are aware of its true antiquity. Beside the body were the remains of a basket, a stone sledgehammer, several stone shovels, sharpened pieces of wood, and a torn bag made of animal hide, all leading to the conclusion that this mummy dates from a very distant time within our history. After more recent analysis was conducted, it was discovered that it was actually a man, strangely. He also has an unusually shaped skull, and a green hue from sulfate and chloride within the copper. It is thought this may have been one of the contributing factors in his marvelous
That's what I was talking about. That wood from the fire that turned to stone.
preservation. The copper man of Chuquicamata is extremely difficult to research, and although he is clearly of considerable historical importance, his whereabouts may continue to remain vague. Regardless of his known whereabouts, his existence will
continue to remain vague. Why? Why did he disappear? We have photos, we have evidence, we have the written evidence and the photos of the men that discovered him and photos of it before they even moved him, right? But he's gone. Why? That's what people need to be asking themselves, is why? Why hide that we were advanced in the past? Why hide that we've been here for millions and millions of years? Now, think about this for a second too. In the Bible, when it talks about Adam and Eve, right? They were in the Garden of Eden. Once Eve ate the apple and gave Adam the apple, they were kicked out of the Garden of Eden. When they left the Garden of Eden, there were people outside already. Now, it could be that those people are Lilith and the children that Adam may have had with Lilith, because there is a story of before Eve, Adam had another wife and he didn't like his wife. And so then he was given Eve, who was made from his rib. I don't want to get too far into the story of Lilith, but it could be that, A, right? Or B, Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden and were a new species of man, right? And the man that was outside was from the previous time. I don't think things like this disprove God or the Bible or the stories that were told from the Bible. I think that if you open your eyes and you think hard enough about it, like, you realize things. Like I said, when they left the Garden of Eden, there were people outside already. Why would there be people out there if Adam and Eve were the first people? Maybe they weren't the first people, but they were the first of a new race of human. It's a different go around every time.
will forever lend credence to a forbidden history here on our planet.
So the next one is from their first channel. That's Mystery History. This is the first one. That other video was from their second channel. All three videos that we're going to watch today will be linked below.
Throughout the world, many ancient sites have produced
about these little balls, right? Well, they're not little. These ones they're huge, but they're all over, I believe, Peru. And they make me think of weapons, right? Like, I don't know if these things were dropped from the sky or what, but they're really interesting and they're all over the place.
perplexing ancient stone carvings of hugely varying size. Some of the ancient relics found are of a perfect sphere, while others feature extremely detailed and as yet unexplained carvings, completed with as yet unknown methods or technology. The largest amongst this perplexing group of artifacts
Look how huge
are
that is.
undoubtedly the land pearls.
See how huge they are?
Some
land pearls. Land pearls. But if humans were giant at one point, right? Like, we were big one go around, pyramids wouldn't have been a big deal to build. these giant stones wouldn't have been a big deal to pick up and place. And not that they were placed. I feel like this was some kind of weaponry or something at one point or another. But they're odd, and we don't understand them, and they're obviously man-made. This isn't a natural formation.
Most impressive are to be found within Costa Rica. Perfectly spherical stones, which, although claimed to be natural, are clearly highly perplexing ancient objects. Parallel to the land pearls are the many tiny artifacts that have been unearthed at many different sites around the globe. The Klerksdorp spheres, for example, found upon the African continent, are typically found to be ranging in diameter from 0.5
See, those are really
to 10.
tiny. Now, what that makes me think of is like shrapnel, right? These were probably weapons of some sort. These probably were things that exploded and all these little balls came out and, killed the enemy. I look at these things and I immediately think weapons. And some of them are made out of stone. And those ones, they almost look like weapons, or like they're depicting viruses or something. You'll see.
Centimeters. These stones also vary widely in shape, from flattened spheres to well-defined discs. Petrographic and X-ray diffraction analysis of specimens found that they consist either of hematite or wollastonite, and all of the
See, and
specimens which were cut open exhibited an extremely well-defined
there's like
radius.
a clay substance inside them, and then the outside is more hard, right? I think these were a part of some kind of bomb or weapon.
Structure, terminating at the center of the Klerksdorp sphere. Some of these objects exhibit well-defined and parallel longitudinal grooves or ridges, which many have claimed are artificial additions. These artifacts have been dated at an astonishing 3 billion years old.
3 billion years old. Now, see,
some
these ones that they're going to start showing, they look like viruses. Like, I still think they were a part of some weapon, like they were put inside something that probably exploded, right? But look at all these ones that they're going to show us. They look like they would be different biological weapons.
Some of the other more perplexing ancient carved stone balls, now known
Right?
as petrospheres, have also been found in Scotland and England. They range from
Look at
having
'em.
no ornamentation to extensive and highly
Viruses.
varied complex patterns. A wide range of theories have been produced to explain their use or significance, although their true purpose remains a mystery. Yet thanks to the complex designs added to these Scottish petrospheres, they are undeniably man-made, and as such,
They look like
predictably,
viruses.
they have only been dated to a mere 5,000 years old.
Even these ones.
Many
These
of the
ones look like they could be viruses for like a different type of species. And again, I think that there were different species of human even each go around.
stones have unfortunately never had their
Viruses.
discovery site recorded, and most are found as a result of agricultural activity. 5 found at Scarabray Village and 1 at the Dunnet Hill Fort, yet other noted sites remain elusive. Interestingly, the distribution of the stones is similar to that of mace heads, weapons, and prestige objects that were often used in ceremonial situations. They
They're
are
very
undoubtedly
tiny, these ones.
highly compelling.
I'm pretty sure that they were weapons for sure. I think they were inside something that probably just exploded, right? And how shrapnel would get like when inside someone's chest, you can't save them because it's just so many little pieces that enter all your organs and stuff. I think that's what those are. From like I said, we may have destroyed ourselves at some points in history. But I think that because the way a lot of these buildings and stuff, the next one we're going to watch is more of places than things. I put that first one together only because I wanted to show you guys some of the things, right? And all the videos that I had been watching were more of places, which is cool too. But I want to maybe make a series out of this, but I got to find a lot of the other ones because there are like crystal skulls. In the thumbnail, all the things that I showed you in the thumbnail are things that I would like to talk about, and they're all out of place artifacts. But a lot of those aren't in the videos that we're going to watch today. But this next one's interesting. This is the channel. And I'll link it below after we watch the video. But a lot of it is about, I think all of it actually is about places, not things, but they're still much older than they should be. In this Indian tribe, this first one that they're about to talk about, the Indian tribe is Penobscots, and that is actually the type of Indian that I am. So I thought it Native American, and I just thought it was really interesting. My family came from Blaine, Maine. This is a different part of Maine that they're talking about, where the Penobscot tribe that my family comes from. It was way far up in Maine, like by Canada.
The Goddard coin, also known as the Maine penny, is a very old coin that dates to the time of Norwegian King Olaf Kyrre, who reigned as King Olaf III between 1067 and 1093. One of the silver coins minted to honor his reign somehow found its way to the Goddard Prehistoric Archaeological Site in Brooklyn, Maine, almost 1,000 years ago. It was discovered in 1957 along with some worked copper, pottery remnants, and other evidence of human habitation. The Goddard site has been dated by archaeologists to 1180 to 1235, and historians believe the people who lived there were the ancestors of today's Penobscot Indians. That
Penobscot,
means
he said that wrong. But Penobscot chief Big Thunder, 1827 to 1906. Interesting thing or fun fact. uh his name, Big Thunder, it's kind of cool because my dad, he made this actually for me. This is a walking stick, and I think on this is all the initials. I was Walks with Clouds. I won't get into why. Yeah, the names are on here. My mom was Thundercloud, and my dad was Big Chief Greenleaf. So I thought it was so funny that the Indian chief's name of the, because my dad, it comes from my dad's side, but was Big Thunder. Like, kind of cool, kind of cool.
means that this coin may have been used as metal currency in America some 500 years before the next New England silver coins, including the pine tree shilling, were minted. What was going on that this coin could have been left behind there? In the early medieval period, the northern hemisphere was warmer than it was later on, or even now, and the Vikings were very active in exploring, attacking, and settling all over northern Europe.
The Vikings were here first. They came to North America long before Christopher Columbus and all that nonsense.
As far north as Iceland. They ventured to Greenland and then North America, where they colonized a part of Newfoundland in about 1000 CE. Archaeological evidence shows they were working with iron there. They built a forge and an iron slag. The Goddard site in Maine dates to approximately 2 centuries later, and that Norwegian silver coin was minted sometime in the interim. We know that the New England Indian tribes did not use metal coins as currency prior to European settlement. They traded wampum with the English colonists because metal coins were scarce. Given this, there are at least 2 explanations for how the main coin came to be at the Goddard site. This site, located on the northern coast
Maine.
across from what is now Nova Scotia, was part of an early shipping route. The Viking coin eventually circulated via their
I lived in Maine for a while. I miss Maine.
explorations and found its way into the hands of these Penobscot ancestors as a
Penobscot.
matter of native trade channels.
Penob.
The Vikings may have left North America by the time these Indians used the coin, but as we know, coins preserve history better than most human artifacts. The Maine State Museum, where it is now housed, describes the Maine penny as
So I told Richie I wanted to go here to see the coin because I thought the story was interesting, and my family are Penobscot Indians. So that museum, I guess, is closed until like 2025, he said. They're like redoing it, but it's like huge and has all kinds of stuff there. I'd really like to go there. It's by Augusta, Maine. That's not that far up. It's probably like 5.5 hours or so. Um, Not even. It would probably be like 5 hours. But yeah, because you get to Augusta first. It's not that far up there. I don't think that's where the coin was found, though. I know that the tribe is from the northern part of Maine, and I think he was saying that he showed that it was near Canada. But this is where the coin is. It could have just been dropped, and picked up by the Native Americans.
As the only pre-Columbian Norse artifact generally regarded as genuine found within the United States. It should come as no surprise that many academics believe that the main coin was somehow planted or found its way to that site by other means. In fact, the American Numismatic Society stated that there is no reliable confirmation on the documentation of the Goddard coin, and much circumstantial evidence suggests that someone deliberately trying to manipulate or obfuscate the situation. The Norse coin from Maine should probably be considered a hoax.
That's the thing.
While the coin
They're so
itself has
quick.
been authenticated, its importance to human history
It's
and
not a hoax. It's not a hoax. That is the thing. When they find these things that don't line up with what they want, they deny it. Deny,
pre-Columbian
deny.
exploration is not as clear because academia has run into yet another contradiction to their established historical timeline.
And that's what it is. That's all that it is. It's a problem with they well, again, I don't think that's all that it is. I think it's because they're hiding the big disaster that's coming. Now, this one is interesting. The Great Wall of Texas. I didn't know anything about this until I watched this one. Like I said, all these ones are places, but this is pretty cool. And it's been argued over by the archaeologists that have looked at it. Some of them are like, "Oh, it's natural, it's a natural formation." And then there's other ones that's like, "Absolutely not. This had to be man-made." But very, very long ago.
Man-made or a natural feature, the miles of seemingly neatly stacked, often buried stone that sometimes reach 40 feet in height and transfers above and below the ground of Rockwall County, Texas, are intriguing. On the whole, the vast majority of geologists think that this formation resulted from purely natural processes rather than constructed by a long-lost ancient people. The existence of the walls was first discovered in 1852 when 3 locals were digging a well. Over the years, other similar formations have been found in the area, either already exposed or similarly excavated across a roughly rectangular 20 square miles of Rockwall County. From the beginning, scientists have claimed that the feature is natural, such as when geologist Richard Burleson in 1874 stated that the exposed sections he examined were igneous occurrences. Similarly, after he viewed the formations in 1901, geologist Dr. Robert Hill classified them as clastic sand dikes, while in 1909, Sidney Page agreed with Hill and described the feature as a number of disconnected sandstone dikes. Of course, even experts can disagree, and when archaeologist Count Byron de Perroc examined a portion of the feature in 1925, he concluded it was man-made. Likewise, after architect John Lindsay studied the wall in 1996, he declared that evidence of a prehistoric structure built by man is mounting. Building on Lindsay's opinion, geologist James Sheldon wrote an unsolicited plea for assistance in reevaluation of the Rockwall County, Texas, Rockwall anomaly. In the paper, Sheldon points to the fact that lintelled portals and archways were documented along the walls and openings on the wall that resemble.
So it was man-made 100%. Like there are windows and there are spots on the wall for people to pass through and conduits for water, right? So this was an ancient site, but in America, but we refuse to look at it. We refuse funding for it. It's just when things don't line up with the way they teach us, they just make it go away. And that's not the way we should be. We should all have the eyes to see, and we should all be seeing these things and realizing why they aren't telling us about these things, because something is coming, something big that they're preparing for, but they're not preparing to save any of us.
Windows and conduits for water have also been observed, as was a stone-lined passage that led to a vaulted chamber. A more recent analysis of a portion of the wall by forensic geologists in 2013 determined that the feature was made via fluid sand at depth rising up through fractures of the overlying hardened clay. And what looked like mortar between the stone blocks was actually sandy clay from the surrounding rock that had squeezed between the blocks. Sheldon, however, has an answer for that. According to him, the ancient people could have used cast instead of cut stone, meaning a form of prehistoric cement that was formed into blocks.
See,
In
that's the thing. That past civilizations absolutely had a way to make like cement, right? Um, they may have had different ways of doing it that were better than ours. They may have been able to make stones that didn't crumble the same way cement that we use does. The iron consistency of things that we find in these million-year-old rock is way better quality than we can produce. Like, we're not capable of doing so. So the same thing could be said for cement and buildings that they were building. Sometimes when they're like, "Oh, how did they get this stone over here?" Maybe they didn't. Maybe they made it. Maybe they had, or maybe they did. Maybe they had obviously they had big machinery, but that stuff would be gone now, except for little things that we find here and there, like these screws and these spark plugs and things that are embedded in rock that is millions of years old, but they're modern day things. We did the same thing basically over and over again. The pyramids, like I said before, I think were used as an energy source. The way Tesla wanted to build energy so that it would be flowing through the air and would be free for everybody. Nikola Tesla had that plan, but they wanted to be able to control it and be able to make us pay for it. Uh Maybe that's not the way it was once before. That's why there are pyramids all over the planet that are on ley lines.
support, Sheldon noted that other megalithic sites across the ancient world were similarly constructed of cast stone.
These are the okay, this is so cool. You guys, this I'm on the fence with. Like, maybe they are pipes that are running through the whole country, or maybe it's exactly what they say in the video, what I was saying about the tree roots. I truly believe that trees were gigantic at one point, and that's why bugs and animals and people were all gigantic at one point. Um, I think people are the reason that trees are now smaller because of deforesting. Giants would have cut down giant trees. There are fossilized remnants of stumps all over the world. This I'm really on the fence with. It could be tree roots, like they say, that like turned to stone under the right conditions, or maybe it was a pipe system for gas or something else.
In China's Qinghai province near Mount Beigong is a mysterious pyramid with 3 caves that lead to a saltwater lake. Local legend speculates that Mount Beigong is an ancient extraterrestrial laboratory. Under the lake bed and on the shore are iron
See, I
pipes
don't like
ranging
that.
from needles.
If it was some kind of laboratory, though, it was not extraterrestrial. It was man-made. We were advanced. Like, why is it every time that's their rationale? Not, oh my God, we were advanced before and something terrible must have happened that knocked us back to the Stone Age. No, no, it had to be aliens. It had to be aliens. It doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't.
Size to 16
It was
inches in
us.
diameter that are around 150,000 years old. The rusty pipes reach from deep inside the mountain to a saltwater lake 260 feet away. Many of the hollow pipes are uniform in size and seem to be placed purposefully. The ancient objects are embedded deep enough into the mountain wall and floor to preclude modern human handling. What is baffling Chinese historians is that the area wasn't
Family.
thought to have been occupied by people until around 30,000 years ago. And according to historians, the humans that were around were nomads, thus making it unlikely that they would have taken the time to install.
Nomads. See, that's the thing. And their assumption of nomads is skeletons that they find that are different than ours. I just think that like there are different species of dog or cat or other animals, right? There were and are different species of human. We're more mixed into being kind of one species of human now, but there was probably multiple different types of humans at one point, and maybe it's a different type every go around. Who knows? Maybe there's just little adjustments made in the DNA.
Plumbing. That leaves a 120,000 year gap of who was here
It
laying
was
down iron
man.
pipe.
Like, just because the
Many
skeleton is different, why does that mean that that man couldn't have been intelligent, right? Like, the skeletons form differently. So that means they're cavemen? I don't understand where that thought process comes from. You can't tell the intelligence of something by its skeleton. You can't.
researchers have argued that this
We
site is
built this
evidence
stuff.
of paleo contact, and the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences isn't ruling it out. A researcher at the Academy told Xinhua news agency the pyramid may have been built by intelligent beings. He
May
didn't
have.
dismiss the theory that ancient extraterrestrials may
That's what
be
I mean. That's
responsible, saying that it's worth looking into and science would have to.
that's such a huge jump. It's such a huge jump to say that it's aliens. It is so much easier and makes so much more sense to be like, wow, man was something at one point and something happened and we had to start over. No, it was aliens. That's just perfect.
Determine if there's any truth. The
People are
investigation
just
into the pipes
amazingly
began in
stupid.
2002, with some researchers believing the pipes were left over by a prehistoric civilization whose techniques were later lost to the humans that moved into the area. Around the pipes leading to the area are strangely shaped.
Now, I want people to think about this for a second. If tomorrow something catastrophic happened, right? Okay, something huge happens and we have no more electricity, we have no more running water, we don't have anything because just something awful happens and we're not even in our houses anymore, okay? We're existing in the woods and there's no governments anymore. Something awful happens like an asteroid hitting the planet or something. I don't know. Imagine this happening. Now, if something so bad happened where it took out like 80% of humans, right? Mankind. Would you know how to make electricity work like yourself? Would you know how to now gas pumps nothing would work. Would you know how to build a TV? Would you know how you wouldn't know how to do these things? Like you would have to start completely over. Your days would consist of trying to find yourself food, something to eat every single day. That would be your mission day to day if there were no more grocery stores and there were no more cars and there was nothing left, right? You would have to hunt and gather and try to feed yourself day to day and protect yourself from the other people out there who are trying to do the same thing. People would probably turn into cannibals and stuff. They would be catching and eating each other, and that drives people crazy. This is probably what happens when these catastrophic things happen. That's why food has been going off the shelves like crazy and disappearing because they're stocking underground. Um, that the weird rocks they have placed, it's like a marking of some kind of where these pipes are. Uh, these are stacked rocks, obviously, but I guess they're like weirdly shaped rocks over in China where these pipes are.
Stones protruding from the ground that are confusing historians even more. Scientists aren't entirely sure what they're made of. While the pipes are believed to be mostly iron, the head of publicity for the local government told reporters that the pipes were analyzed at a local smeltery and 8% of the material could not be identified. The remaining material was a combination of ferric oxide, silicon dioxide, and calcium oxide, which are byproducts
You know what's interesting? Um, the other building block for life, we are carbon-based life forms, right? But the other base that we know of that could be a building block for life is silicon. So I wonder sometimes if there was a civilization that existed that was their building block for life here on Earth. It could be different every go around. It's just like different test runs, or we're here for a reason. I know that. But 8% of it is unidentified metals. So do we not know at all what this stuff is? But again, it's a much higher, like, stronger iron content than we are capable of making.
Products of a long interaction between iron and the surrounding sandstone. In 2007, it was discovered that some of the pipes also showed traces of radiation. One
Ooh,
final theory is that they aren't even pipes at all, but fossilized tree
tree roots.
roots.
See?
Fossilized tree roots of similar structure have been found in Louisiana, and scientists found plant matter in some of the pipes, and it looks very similar to tree rings. It's a long standing geological theory that in certain temperatures and under certain chemical conditions, tree roots can undergo the transformation of soil into
Anything
rock
can though.
and in time produce iron formation.
Not just tree roots, like humans, animals, anything can turn to stone if it's the right conditions, right? Like the right the wood that we turned to stone overnight, it was a really hot fire because we put glass into the fire. Um so and the glass started to melt. And then at the end of the night we poured water on it, so there was like a rapid cooling as well. Um Under the right conditions, anything can turn to stone. So this is iron that it turned into, but it's all about the conditions, right? So, and again, if they were tree roots though and not a pipe system, which it's really China's like 50-50, they don't really know which it is, whether it's tree roots or it, like I said, their option is it's extraterrestrial. So that makes sense. But if it was a tree, it would have been one hell of a tree, a huge, huge tree. It goes all over the entire country.
Formations. So, were these pipes laid down by an unknown ancient civilization or possibly ancient astronauts? As
Ancient,
of yet,
no.
there is no definitive answer. But one thing is for sure, this location directly contradicts the academic historical paradigm.
Dropa stones.
The Dropa stones are a series of at least 716 circular
Don't
stone
these look
discs
like
dating
CDs, right? Like, I bet you they say there's some kind of, like, conductor of a sort, right? Like, that this at some point had electricity, like, it conducted electricity. But to me, it looks like because of all these little grooves that are in each spot, I bet there is a way to either run this disk and get data off of it, or you might be able to hear something if it it looks so much like a CD. Not just because it looks like a CD, like, that's ridiculous to just be like, "Oh, it looks like a CD." I bet you could hear something, but I bet that there was more to this than just even what they say, because what they say is that it tells a story and there's actually, like, little carvings on each of these things, but I bet you there was a way to play this, but it's been lost because it came from another time that we were advanced.
back 12,000 years on which tiny hieroglyph like markings may be found. Each disc measures up to 1 foot or 30 centimeters in diameter and carry two grooves originating from a hole in their center in the form of a double spiral. The hieroglyph like markings are found in these grooves. No record has been found of the stones being displayed in any of the world's museums, and based on this singular fact, the academic world assumes them to be a hoax. But if a record of display is the determinant of a hoax, we would need to include a great many artifacts and structures that mainstream already acknowledges as having existed. It was in 1962 that Sun Nu concluded that the grooves on the disc were actually very tiny hieroglyphs which
See?
can only be seen with the use of a magnifying glass. He announced that he had deciphered them into a story that told of a spacecraft that crash landed near a cave in the Banyan Har Mountains and that the
No,
ship
this is something. He says with a microscope you can see carvings in it, and the story that it tells is quite interesting if you ask me. It's crossed my mind that I got Dookie. This is the little Dookie boy. It's crossed my mind that there may be human beings, right, that are out away from Earth entirely, that left Earth last time or a time before that the great ending was coming, but the ones that are out there obviously like have never been on Earth. It just, I don't know, I have these thoughts sometimes that there may be beings that came from here in other places, and I just, I don't know. The whole idea of these Oparts and the story that this is about to tell you is kind of crazy.
contained the Dropa people who could not fix it and therefore had to adapt to Earth. Further, his research claims that the Dropa people were hunted down and killed by the local Han Chinese for a period.
Yep.
Some
Classic humans, shoot first, ask questions later.
Nu noted specifically that one glyph apparently said, "The Dropa came down from the clouds in their aircraft. Our men, women, and children hid in the caves 10 times before sunrise. When at last we understood the sign language of the Dropas, we realized that the newcomers had peaceful intentions." Russian researchers requested the disk for study, and allegedly several were shipped to Moscow. Once there, it is said they were scraped for loose particles and put through a chemical analysis which revealed that they contain large amounts of cobalt and other metallic substances. As recorded in the Soviet magazine Sputnik, a Dr. Shazev describes an experiment where the discs were supposedly placed on a special turntable whereby they were shown to vibrate or hum in an unusual rhythm as though an electric charge was passing through them. More interestingly, several tests with an oscilloscope suggested the Dropa stones may have been once used as electrical conductors. Dr. Shazev was certain that they had been exposed to abnormally hard voltages at some period back in time. In the final chapter of this controversial story, an Austrian engineer named Ernest Wegerer allegedly found two Dropa stones in 1974. They were displayed at the Bampo Museum where he happened to be on a guided tour. Based on his own words, the disc perfectly matched the description of the stones from decades ago. According to the director of the Bampo Museum in 1994, Professor Wang Qijun, both the Dropa stones and the manager from 1974 disappeared without a trace just days after Ernest Wegerer took the photos and requested.
I almost went on a started speaking with my mic muted there. I caught it though. So that's the thing. These stones, when they found them at one point, oh, they were a hoax, but then the Russian government wants them, so they get some of them. If why would they want them if they were a hoax? And then they find out all this other information about them. And again, like, I bet you there is a way to play those things. Uh but they're much older than our civilization. And but they all just end up disappearing over time. And that's what a lot of these things, that's what happens to them. They're just gone. It doesn't make sense that we can't just, why can't we be truthful about our own past?
Additional information. This was the last time anyone heard anything new about the disc.
This one is interesting too.
All
Oh
kinds of gifts.
no,
Made for all kinds
I
of
missed
giving.
one. I'm sorry,
yes.
guys. I missed an ad. I try to take these out for you.
Is dated 1513. Yet,
So hold on. This map shows Antarctica connected to part of South America. All right, here we go. Oh,
All
that's
kinds of
perfect.
gifts.
Perfect.
And for all kinds of giving. Etsy has it.
A medieval era map discovered in a Turkish
Right.
palace in 1929 is dated 1513. Yet, it shows a knowledge of faraway lands well beyond the areas European explorers
All right,
had
this
traveled,
one.
and even shows land features Europeans couldn't possibly have known about in 1513, like the Andes Mountains of South America and the coastline of the Antarctic under the ice. The map, drawn on a piece of gazelle skin, was said to be the work of
I know I've heard of this map before, and I know where it shows the Antarctic coastline. It's perfect. Like, it is the Antarctica coastline, but it shows it without ice, and it shows animals there. Like, at one point, Antarctica was a beautiful place. It was not the ice cap that it is, and that may have something to do with pole shift. And if you guys look into the North Pole, like magnetic north, where it is and where it's been over the past, like, I don't know, at least 10, 20 years, it's been moving very far rapidly, much more than it did in the past. And the poles may be shifting again. Maybe that has something to do with what happens over and over again and makes man have to start over.
Piri Reis, a cartographer and admiral in the Turkish army. When drawing up his map, Piri Reis consulted as many as 20 other maps, some dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. Antarctica is more than 98% covered in glacial ice and snow. The continent of Antarctica was discovered in 1818, several hundreds of years after the Piri Reis map was drawn, yet it shows a landmass where Antarctica is. This, in and of itself, is astonishing, but there are more curiosities. The coastline of this landmass was unfamiliar and therefore deemed inaccurate
You
for
saw the
hundreds of
tip.
years until
Okay, this tip of Antarctica, and then above that is South America, but there's a big gap between the two. The map shows them connected. So, as if this entire landmass was not where it is now and it was up further. Maybe that's why it wasn't covered in ice. Maybe Antarctica itself was a chunk of land. Now, Bible prophecy talks about a chunk of land falling into the sea in the times that are to come. Maybe something similar happened before and a chunk of land fell into the sea and froze over. Maybe Antarctica was a great nation in the past go around.
1961. It was then that Captain Lorenzo Burrows, a captain in the U.S. Air Force Cartography Division, noted that the outline of this southern landmass seemed to accurately depict the coastline of the continent under the ice. How is this possible given the limitations of the surveying equipment in the 1500s? One theory is that the map was drawn using information on older maps that were made so long ago that it was before Antarctica was covered in ice. If that is the case, it is tangible proof of an advanced and much older civilization that predates known
Antarctica is pretty interesting too. There are pyramids there as well. At one point, it wasn't covered in ice.
civilizations. One odd inaccuracy in the Piri Reis map is that the tip of South America is attached to Antarctica. One theory to explain this connects to the idea of continental drift. It is theoretically possible for Antarctica to have been attached to South America in the distant past, and that it broke off from South America and formed its own continent after prehistoric seafarers charted this part of the globe. But even if this shift was the last breakage of the original giant landmass, it still would have occurred much longer ago than known human exploration. Piri Reis added a note on the map he created that translates to say, "It is related by the Portuguese infidel that in this spot night and day are at their shortest of 2 hours and at their longest of 22 hours. Due to the tilt of the earth, the winter months in the polar regions receive very little, if any, daylight. During the summertime, however, the sun never sets and the region experiences constant sunlight." Piri Reis indicates that he was given knowledge of this from the Portuguese but no known Portuguese sailor had ventured that far south in the 1500s.
No known Portuguese sailor. Like, nobody that we know of has, but exploration had happened there. Um, it, it's said that Atlantis might even be under the ice, or it could be in the ocean as well. But Antarctica has pyramids on it. Antarctica has structures on it. At one point, there was a civilization there, and now it's, conditions that man can't exist in. The Earth itself may have been warmer in the past, and the Earth may go through phases where they're so far apart that we don't acknowledge them. But it might go through cold phases and warmer phases, and maybe at one point Antarctica was still where it is. Maybe South America was lower, but it wasn't covered in ice because the Earth itself was warmer. There could be diseases under that ice. When it thaws, it could release something. You never know.
Oddly, Piri Reis positioned this notation near South America much further north than the region affected by the polar winter. It could be that he simply added the notation where there was room. Other experts believe that South America was once further south of its present location and has since drifted north. The coastlines of South America and Africa, as shown on the Piri Reis map, are surprisingly accurate.
They're
Within
not really that far apart. Like, they definitely could have been connected before.
a half a degree of longitude. The equator is also in the precise location. Prior to 1790, when the marine chronometer was invented, sailors, navigators, and cartographers had no accurate way to pinpoint a given location.
Now,
Yet,
that itself is an Oopart, not this specifically, but we have found like gears and things that were definitely made for navigation systems that are extremely old. So again, we've been here, done this time and time again.
the Piri Reis map seems to have done that long before it was possible. Even if navigators did sail down the coast of South America, Africa, and Antarctica, the Piri Reis map should only indicate coastal features. Yet, the Andes Mountains of South America are accurately portrayed on the map. Rivers are even included. The inclusion of these land features means that Piri Reis had knowledge of more than just the coastlines of the continents on his map. Some experts claim that the Piri Reis map is proof that there were advanced civilizations on Earth at much earlier dates than known civilizations. Others claim that the map shows that continental movement occurred more recently than geologists believe. Still, others claim the map is a work of fiction and that it was dumb luck that it has proven to be so accurate.
Again, another ridiculous statement. It's just a coincidence that it was so accurate. No, it again, been there, done it. Deja vu might be something much more than people think.
And, of course, there are many researchers who argue that the map is solid evidence of paleo contact. Discovered by Egyptologist Brian Walter Emery in 1936 at Saqqara, located at the entrance of the Nile Delta and just west of Memphis, the schist disk was uncovered while excavating the tomb of Prince Sabu of the First Dynasty circa 3000 BCE. While uncovering numerous funerary objects from the site, Emery's attention was drawn to an object that he initially defined in his report, The Great Tombs of the First Dynasty, as a container in the form of a schist bowl. Schists are a category of medium-grade metamorphic rocks notable for the preponderance of what are termed lamellar minerals such as micas, chlorite, talc, hornblende, and graphite. Derived from clays and mud, which have passed through a series of metamorphic processes, most schist are mica, but graphite and chlorite are also widely found. Schist is characteristically foliated, meaning the individual mineral grains split off easily into flakes or slabs. Approximately 61 centimeters in diameter, 1 cent.
Okay. So this to me looks like a hubcap, right? Now, what I think when I look at this is because of the way it's made and stuff, maybe in the past their vehicles, right? Like it wasn't an engine necessarily, or it had a type of engine, but maybe they were like electric type vehicles. And the hubcaps that were on the wheels is what made the wheels spin. That's what I think personally when I look at this. He says something about it being like a wheel, like a steering wheel type of thing. I don't think so. I think these were probably on wheels that this is what made the wheel spin.
Centimeter thick and 10.6 centimeters in the center, the schist disc was crafted by an unknown method from this very fragile and delicate material, the production of which would confound many artists even today. Resembling a plate or a concave steering wheel of a car, it has 3 cuts or curved shovels that resemble the helix of a boat, and in the center is an opening with a rim that seems to act as an outside receiver of some axis of a wheel or
No
some other
worries.
unknown mechanism, conceivably a central hub designed to fit onto a pole. Housed in the first wing of the Egyptian Museum of Cairo, the disc is currently labeled an incense container,
An
although
incense, like really though, really, you saw that thing, right? It it's the size of a steering wheel, but that's like the size of a hubcap as well. I look at that and I swear I get the feeling like that was something that was used to spin or run some kind of vehicle or even engine maybe, but it's obviously some kind of conductive metal, and they have it labeled as an incense container, and there's no evidence that incense were ever burned in this thing ever.
there is no evidence or consensus
Boom.
whatsoever to support this
Timing.
assertion. What is certain, however, is that by this early time in history, stone carving was apparently a sophisticated skill far beyond what had ever been imagined. While most every
Look at
archaeologist
this
feels
thing.
compelled to offer an opinion,
Look at it. Look at the grooves in it, and it's made of metal. Like this, it was for some kind of machinery.
as to what purpose the disc served, its futuristic design continues to baffle any Egyptologist who has had the opportunity to study it at any length. Thus, a satisfactory
You know,
explanation has yet
Egyptians, right? Like now, say something catastrophic were to happen and you're left behind with very few people on the earth, and you're basically existing like cavemen at this point. You're hunting, you're gathering, you're trying to feed yourself every day, and that's just what your life is because there are no more grocery stores or people within any distance close enough to you, and people are dangerous at this point. Now eventually people would start to slowly form little villages and groups and become more civilized, right? Now, you may have things left from before, like you may have the wheel or hubcap piece that ran a vehicle, but you don't know how to do that yourself. Like, could you build a car out of nothing? Probably not. Could you, like I was saying, could you build a TV? Could you make electricity run? Could you do these things by yourself? Probably not. But there would be remnants or things left over. I think that the Egyptians came upon the pyramids that were from a civilization that was advanced, but it fell. The human population fell and we had to start over, right? So there would be things that would be left, and you might keep things almost as like I don't know, like a good luck charm or something.
to be provided. Adding to the mystery is
Remember
the
the
well
time before, there would be stories, you know what I mean? You would tell stories of things like it it would be things that would be passed down just by word of mouth, and you could have remnants and pieces of when you existed in a world that was much different. Like eventually that generation that existed when things were technologically advanced would die off, and all you would have left is stories.
documented belief that the introduction of the wheel in Egypt didn't occur until the invasion of the Asiatic group known as the Hyksos at the end of the Middle Kingdom around 1640 BCE. Thus, the questions that arise are, if the schist disk is not a wheel nor modeled after a wheel, what is it? How could a culture who typically used chisels to shape rock have mastered a technique to work
See, like
such a delicate?
they rolled up on these pyramids and these buildings from a civilization that was advanced from the time before, from a civilization that they've probably only heard stories of, right? And then they claimed it as their own. The Sphinx head is way smaller, and it was probably a lion at one point, and they came along and had someone carve a human face into it. But you can tell by looking at it, and they've even said that they're pretty sure that it was a whole lion, and the Egyptians came along and turned it into the Sphinx. They came into these buildings and they painted on them and they claimed them as their own. It's really that simple. These things were here before they were.
Delicate material to this extraordinary level? And perhaps most importantly, why would they invest the time and skills needed to create this object unless it served a very important, specific purpose? Be that as it may,
They
the
just
schist
had it.
disk,
It was
which has
left
been
over.
dated to at least 3000 BCE, continues to constitute one of the most perplexing
It
Egyptian.
looks like a hubcap. It looks like something that would go on a wheel, I swear. Like, this looks like a commercial for some kind of special hubcap.
And ancient mysteries. Indeed, the schist disk is
The
one of the
schist
best
disc.
examples of an out of place artifact for those researchers who refuse to believe that such an advanced piece of technology could have been conceived and created without celestial help.
That's so ridiculous. It's so absolutely ridiculous to think that we couldn't create these things without help from aliens. I mean, come on, really? It's such a big jump to go from, oh, maybe man could have been that, like, that makes more sense. That makes the most sense to be just say that we were advanced and something bad happened and we had to start over. To jump to, oh, it must have been aliens, is such a giant leap. It's just insane. I want to look for like some more. I know this one was kind of like the videos are I, I wish they were more exciting. Anyway, I think this stuff is really interesting. If you guys liked it and you want to see more Opart stuff, or if you'd prefer me to maybe put up like a slideshow of stuff and just tell you what things are, I could do that too. A lot of these videos they're very like documentary type videos, and I like videos that aren't hard to hang on to when you're watching them. But I think Oparts are really interesting. I think that it's really interesting that our society fails to tell us the truth about these things. I think it's interesting that the governments fail to acknowledge these things when they're found and they're proven to be much older than the way we think man happened. It's really, I don't know. I think it's cool. I think people should know the truth about these things. And I think it lines in with everything we've been talking about lately about preparing and being ready for the bad things that are to come. I mean, it's just so obvious. There are so many different things happening at once that the writing is on the wall all around us. This video lines up with it because it proves that this has happened before and it's going to happen again. This isn't going to be the last time it happens, but we're existing in that time. So we have to be ready for it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, let me know. If you want to do more Opart stuff, I could try to make it more exciting somehow. I can. And if you have any video suggestions, always leave them below. I definitely up for suggestions on stuff. Anything you guys would like to see, um, I'm willing to look into. I love looking into different stuff. If you guys know of something you think is interesting and you want to hear me talk about and watch video, you could send me links to videos and stuff too. Up to you guys. I hope you all enjoyed this. God bless you guys. I love each and every one of you individually, of course. I'm pulling up the, hold on just a second. Okay. Pulling up the outro here for you guys. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about Ooparts. There are so many more that are so much more interesting than that stuff. Like I said, there was like a iron hammer they found in rock that was millions and millions of years old, and like it's the iron consistency is something we can't produce today. It was a much better quality than we're capable of making. And there are the glass skulls. They're like these human skulls that are made of glass, but they could be, I think it's like a quartz type glass or something. And I wonder if there's some kind of information stored on these as well. I feel like some of these Ooparts that we find are ways that they used to keep information in the past, but we don't have the technology to read it. Think about it in the way of how we've gone from books to computers, right? If we were to fall as a society, everything that's stored online or on a computer would just be gone. So if it wasn't hard copies of stuff, like as in books and physical things, it would just be gone. And our society is transferring over to this technologically advanced type of civilization. And that's, I think, where we got many times in the past. So when we find these weird things, they may have been some like the Dropa discs and stuff that they showed. I think they were some kind of data storage. We just don't have the technology to read it or understand it. But let me know what you guys think about it. If you want to talk more about Ooparts, I could find some more that we could talk about. And as always, stay aware, stay awake, and stay vigilant. I love you guys.